Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt, and thank you for stopping by the channel. Now I've got a really fun pattern for you today. This one was sent in by a viewer named Darrell Goad. Now Darrell sent me a picture of this fly and said he's had a lot of success with it this year. So I asked him to send me the recipe, and I tried tying it up, and I thought it was pretty fun and looked pretty cool. So here's a picture Darrell sent me. He's calling this the red dart. Now the materials are pretty simple, and he got most of his materials from a craft store in a bag of feathers, kind of like this right here. Now it's not entirely tied from craft store materials because he does use an ice dub for the body, but the tail is one of these, really cheap feathers, or you could use a marabou or even the one of the base feathers from a pack of strung saddle hackle, which this is what I'm going to use for the front because I like the red tail combination and then a little bit of olive up front. And this is really one of those patterns where you can get a lot of mileage out of it. Just, something like a marabou tail and then a dark, synthetic, kind of crinkly, kind of glittery body, and then another marabou type schlappen hackle up front. And Darrell tied this in a size 12, so you could fish this really as kind of a big wet fly or a small streamer. So I dropped it down to a size 10, but I'm tying it on a streamer hook, so it's a 3X long hook, because I would probably fish this thing actively on the strip just like I would a mini streamer. But I think he came up with a pretty cool pattern. It's really easy to tie, and I think you're gonna like it. Let's give it a shot. So there you go, Darrell Goad's red dart. A pretty simple, crazy looking pattern. Not too difficult to tie, but kind of fun. Now I'm tying this on a size 10. This is actually a streamer hook, so it's a 3X long streamer hook, but in the end, what's the difference between a size 10 streamer hook and a size 10 wet fly hook? Well, it's probably just that this is 3X long and a wet fly hook would be 1 or 2X long. So after you smash your barb, go ahead and put some weight down. I'm using 020 and I'm gonna put 10 or 12 wraps. Keep it up here toward the front of the hook a little bit. I think that's fine right there. And black thread, or use some olive thread, use colored thread, whatever you want. I'm gonna put a dam behind it, take it up over the weight, put a dam in front, and then tape onto the back. Okay, now I'm gonna leave this tag in because I'm gonna just wrap that as a rib, because I'm not going to put this dubbing on in a dubbing loop, which Darrell did, and you surely can, but I think it's just a bit easier to put the dubbing on and then wrap a rib through it. So take one of your cheap feathers from that craft store pack, or one of the base feathers, or maybe some red marabou, whatever you've got. And it's a pretty substantial and pretty long tail, so I'm just going to use the tips. You can use some feathers from the side, it's pretty much all the same, and about a body length. So I'm going to catch this in right here. I'll go ahead and trim off all of this because that just gets in the way of wrapping. But I'll catch this in with a pinch wrap, and then another one to check my position. It's coming off the top there, and I got a little bit of fluff right here to bury. Just try to get it captured in as best you can right there. We're putting a big spiky dubby body on it, so it doesn't matter too much. But let's go ahead and put some wax on. And ice dub, synthetic dark ice dub with a little bit of UV in it. This is what I'm using right there, which is the UV black and ice dub. And it'll probably take me a couple applications to get all the way up there on this 3X long hook. Now what you could do right now, you could just pull this up and create a dubbing loop like this, spin it together, and then wrap it that way. But I think that's a little bit harder, and you oftentimes don't have enough dubbing on it and you have to end up putting more. So I'm just going to wrap it on the thread one time, but doing it this way with this spiky ice dub, it won't stay, on your thread all that cleanly. So you would definitely want to put some kind of rib up through it if you do it this way. Now we'll put another noodle on about the same length as that last one we did and take it all the way up front. Okay, now it might look like it's really secure on there, but this ice dub, it's not going to stay on all that well if you don't, reinforce it. It will come out after the first couple of fishes and you'll have a really scraggly looking fly. Though there's not always anything wrong with a scraggly looking fly, but after 8 or more fish, you might not have any dubbing left at all on it. So I'm just putting this thread up here to give it a little bit more durability. And sure, you could do that with a wire. It might add a little bit of weight and a little bit of flash, but you don't necessarily need the flash with this black sparkle ice dub. So the last component is just another one of these cheap feathers. I'm going to actually use a base feather from some strung saddle hackle, like this right here. And this is an olive, hard to see with that black background, but it is an olive. And I think the greens and yellows kind of look better to contrast with this red. And it is a red dart, so I would feel comfortable just changing, you could change the body color, you could change the front hackle color, but if you keep that back big tail red, we could still call it a red dart. Okay, so let's go ahead and snip this off. And I'm going to spin this just like a hackle. Darrell said he snipped some of these off and put them in a dubbing loop and then wrapped it around tight and pulled it out. And that's certainly one way to go. But I think just a couple of loops like this are going to be fine because I want a pretty long and bushy. I want these fibers to be, maybe back toward the middle of the tail. So I think that was 2, maybe 3 wraps. But you can't wrap it too much because up here the stem of the feather is getting really thick. So 3 is probably the most you could get if you're doing it with a hackle feather like this. Now let's just put this back. And don't worry that you think, oh, I'm covering up all this body. You will see that body when this thing gets wet because this marabou-like feather is going to just flutter all over the place and you will definitely see that underbody. And I just broke my thread, it nicked it on that tip right there. So how do we recover from that? I'll show you. Okay, well, first thing you do is rethread your bobbin. Get your thread in there. This is where I would have probably been smarter to use, say, a 6/0 or a 140 denier. But, I had 70 spooled and I use it for most everything. And you don't often break your thread if you're careful. And I just wasn't being that careful. So let's go ahead and snip this tag end off. We're gonna have a little bit of cleanup right there. You can either try to get in there with your scissors, see those black fibers all over the place, or you can just kind of pull them back and then be a little more careful with your head right here. And then we wrap it back up, and to the common observer, you can't even tell that we broke our thread a minute ago. So there we go. And that's a pretty nifty looking red dart. So that's some ice dub right there. Let's go ahead and put a whip finish on this thing. And a drop of head cement, and this guy is going in my fly box. Pretty cool looking pattern, and I am pretty confident this thing is going to do very well. It did well for Darrell. I'm going to give it a shot here in Maryland. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.